Hey, beautiful mama. Welcome back to another week on the potty. And I am excited to be here as always. I feel like I'm about to sneeze. I'm hoping it goes away. If I sneeze, I do apologize. I'm not starting the recording again. So today's episode is one I realized I hadn't really spoken to and dived into yet, but one that I'm excited to chat about. It's quite a big topic. So it's obviously just going to be stepping our feet in, dipping our toes in a little bit today because it's something that could be spoken about. It's a whole course on, if you will, but something I believe and has been for me truly foundational in understanding myself and my own well-being as a mama. And that is around rewiring and starting to heal your nervous system. And you might have heard me speak to this before on Instagram if you're on my socials, but if you've ever found yourself feeling constantly stressed and overwhelmed, reactive to the everyday demands of motherhood, then this one's for you. And I'm sure many can relate to that. So we're going to explore how motherhood impacts your nervous system and what the nervous system actually is, how it affects everything from your emotions to your ability to enjoy and feel present in your day-to-day life, and importantly, how you can start regulating your nervous system so you can build more resilience and manage overwhelm with a little bit more ease and feel just more fulfilled and feel more joy in motherhood. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's dive straight into it. So first off, I wanted to just talk about what the nervous system is, because I think we do hear this term a lot and might not fully understand how it works, why it's important, especially for us mamas. So in really simple terms, our nervous system, you can think of it as a bit of the command center of your body, and it is responsible how we respond to stress, how you feel in our body, how we react to the world around us. And it's constantly taking in information from the environment that we live in. And the autonomic nervous system, which is the one we sort of hear about more often, is in three different branches, well, two main branches. So we've got the parasympathetic state, which is then divided into two branches: our dorsal vagal, which is when we are more in that freeze response, that shutdown mode, and then our ventral vagal, which is when we're more in that regulated, able to connect, social state. And then on the other end is our sympathetic state. So that's more when we go into that fight flight mode, which many of you, I'm sure, have heard about and experienced before, because it's we can often be in this sympathetic state. It's that real moving energy. And think about how your day unfolds when you're juggling the kids, the household, maybe work, business, and all the other million responsibilities and mental load of motherhood that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. And then you still haven't even had a moment for yourself, right? So this is when our nervous system often will kick into high gear, and then it will release stress hormones like cortisol, like adrenaline, because that's what it's designed to do, and it helps to help you cope with the chaos. And when we think about it from caveman days, we needed to have these states. It's a survival state. It's when back in those caveman days, we were being chased by saber-toothed tiger, and our life literally depended on whether we froze, whether we ran away, or whether we wanted to fight that saber-toothed tiger, because it was a threat. And it was a very real threat, a life or death situation. But now, in our modern world, our brains are still haven't quite caught up. They're still in those caveman days, but the threats aren't life or death. They're perceived threats now, but our brains still thinks of them and acknowledges them as a threat, as a danger, and it goes into this survival state. But the problem is, in our modern world, when we're in that constant state of stress, because obviously back in the days where the threat was real, obviously if you got away from the tiger, you fled or you fought it and you killed it, the threat was over, and you were able to naturally come back into that more regulated ventral vagal state, or you froze and it thought you were dead and ran away. But now we are constantly feeling like we're in this state of stress or this fight or flight, and our nervous system can't ever fully relax, and that can be really problematic. And over time, this is when we experience burnout, really constant, really extreme exhaustion and emotional overwhelm. And you might feel you're constantly on edge, and it becomes harder to regulate your emotions or even to think clearly and even enjoy the little moments with your kids. And this might sound really familiar. So when we're, and then unfortunately on the other end of this, when we're experiencing this all the time, this is when we can start to react more with our kids. And I know I've been there, like we become more snappy, we are reactive, we might yell, we might flip our lid, whatever you want to call it, raise our voice, because we're in just this really, what we call a hyper aroused state, this sympathetic state, and that energy needs to be directed somewhere, but unfortunately it then gets directed towards our loved ones, whether it might be your kids, or it could be your spouse, your loved partner, your loved ones. So that's kind of the nervous system in a nutshell, a very brief overview. But let's think more about how this plays out in real life and the impact of it. And so when we're in a heightened state of stress, your brain, like I said, it's literally wired for survival. And like I said, we're likely to snap at our kids, lose our patience, just feel like we're drowning in overwhelm. And let me just say this, it is not any indication of whether you're a quote unquote good or not good mother, or an indication that you're failing. So please just let that sink in. If you snap at your kids, you lose your patience, feel like you're drowning, just know that it has no indication on what type of mother you are, because we are always doing the best we can in any given moment. It's because your nervous system is stuck in overdrive, and that constant stress, it's going to impact your ability to connect with your kids. It's going to impact your capacity for joy. And it's going to impact your physical health. You might notice things like feeling more anxious or having trouble sleeping, or even physical symptoms like tension headaches or digestive issues. And these are all signs that your nervous system needs a little bit of support. And I know this from personal experience. I had a few years back, the biggest sign for me when I started actually learning about the nervous system, I had at the time some pretty intense gut issues that were getting worse and worse. And to the point it was so debilitating at times. I'd be at work and I would have to go and lie on the floor because of how intense the pain was. And it really took, unfortunately, getting to that point. And there were some food intolerances and things as well. But once they were cleared or resolved, the pain was still there. And it wasn't until I started to work more on my nervous system health and understand my nervous system more deeply that I was able to resolve that. And I know now that when I start to get these gut issues, I go, what's going on underneath here? And often, actually not often, always, it's because there's some sort of stressor happening. I might be, whatever it is, there's a stressor, I know that. So when I can resolve that stressor and start to regulate my nervous system more, the pain, it doesn't last long anymore. Let me just say that. And it doesn't happen very often anymore. But point is, it was about noticing and becoming aware of some of those symptoms. And also for me, knowing that my capacity for joy, not just in motherhood, but life, was quite limited. And that was because I was operating in such a state of overdrive and in more or less a sympathetic state. So it's not all doom and gloom. I often feel like I say this a bit on my podcast. It's not all doom and gloom, because the good news is you can heal and regulate your nervous system. And when we do, it's really the difference between feeling like you're barely surviving motherhood to actually thriving in it and feeling more joy and feeling more fulfilled in life in general. And this has been my own experience as well. So, how to actually heal and regulate your nervous system? How do we do this? How can we start to look after our nervous system a bit more, heal it, have good nervous system health, and start to rewire it and move from this survival mode state to a place of more joy and peace in life? And there are so many tips and tools and strategies out there, and I don't want to overwhelm you with any more. So I'm going to just stick to the ones that I speak to a lot and that have supported me and continue to support me. And the first one I will speak to can be super simple. It's all around just grounding techniques. So it's a really powerful way to just bring your mind and your body back to the present moment. And it can be as simple as walking bare feet on the grass. It can be from there focusing on the sensations of your feet touching the ground. It can be placing a hand on your heart and just feeling your heartbeat and taking a deep, slow, deep, nourishing breath. All of these small acts can help shift you out of fight flight, back into your body, back into the present moment, back more into this mindfulness. And I do these a lot, and it happens quite unconsciously a lot of the time now, because I have worked a lot on doing these. Especially a big one for me is just putting my hand on my heart and taking a breath. Because for me, feeling my own hand over my heart and just having that touch and that connection, that physical connection, is enough for me. Just, it's enough of a reminder to me to be like, oh, okay, let's come back to here. What's here right now? Especially if I'm starting to spiral into, like, if I'm getting anxious about something, worrying about something, or if the kids are like being really loud or they're arguing before I even intervene. So I know I'm not coming in from this reactive state. I can just put a hand on my heart, and I often will close my eyes, because sometimes taking away that visual sense can again help us drop more into our body and orientate inward, and taking that breath can just really help to ground us. So that is one that can be super simple but really powerful. And another one is movement. And movement doesn't just have to be exercise. I do exercise. I go to the gym because I love it. It makes me feel good. And we don't need to say anything more about that. So, but movement can be, as many of you know, if you've been in my world, through dancing from going to a class, but movement from a embodied movement state. So moving my body as to what feels good, what is there now, what am I feeling right now, how would that move in my body and shift and move through these emotions and just be with them. And again, that I'm doing a feminine embodiment coaching certification at the moment, and that is a huge part of the work in terms of movement and how we can bring that awareness back online within, and how we might move our bodies to start to notice more of those sensations and to move as them and to feel them. So movement, or it could be, and another thing I do, like I will just put music on when I'm cooking and things like that, and just dance around the kitchen and move my body, because again, it feels good. You know, movement, even in gentle ways, it doesn't have to look a particular way. It can just help so much to release stored stress and tension. and think of it as a way to shake off a bit of that pent-up energy. You know, like I said, you don't need to hit the gym for an hour. It could be dancing with your kids. It could be stretching. It could be taking a walk around the block. And all these things can do wonders to our nervous system and just help, again, just bring us back into the present moment as well. Sleep, rest and sleep. That is a big one. My sleep has been shocking at the moment. But I know the importance of sleep. It is so crucial for our nervous system. But not only sleep, rest, mindful rest, which can be very challenging for many of us. You know, if your body's feeling exhausted and, you know, it's asking for rest, it can be really hard to give ourselves that, especially when we're mothers. It can be hard to come by. But even those micro moments of rest can help. So practicing mindful resting can look like simply closing your eyes for a few minutes and focusing on your breath. Call it meditation if you want. But it just signals to the brain that it's safe to relax, even just for a moment. So I will, again, often do that at my work desk here where I'm seated right now, close my eyes and just take a few breaths if I'm needing to just check in with my body and what's going on in the moment. So, yeah, and like I said, it can be hard, of course. Sleep, if you've got young kids, disrupted sleep, like it's tough. And also know that it's a season. But if you are finding that sleeping is, or having good quality sleep or long enough sleep is maybe not in the season that you're in right now with your kids, then really trying to implement those mindful rest, little micro breaks throughout the day, and throughout the week. And then lastly, use of mantras, and not just saying a mantra, but singing them. I have a music therapy background, as you probably know if you've been listening and know me a little bit, but if you don't, there you go. So I know the power of music. I know the power of singing, and especially how it can support and regulate our nervous system. So it could be using one simple word, breathe, and just chanting that on a tone. I will demonstrate for you now. It could just be breathe, breathe, and just literally repeating that over and over, hand on your heart. Or you might come up with your own mantra or an affirmation or something that is relevant for you in the moment or your season of motherhood. And one that I always love to use, especially when we're having some hard times in motherhood, is I'm doing the best I can, I'm human and I make mistakes. So that one can be, and I do actually, I'm going to put this mantra on the show notes. I'll just do a shortened version of it, but it can sound like, I am doing the best I can. I am human and I make mistakes. I am doing the best I can. I am human and I make mistakes. And again, doing this for as long as feels good. I was literally just tapping my chest as I did that, because again, movement, having that sensory input, that touch, that connection to self can be really regulating as well. And the reason music and singing and using mantras can be super regulating and support our nervous system is for a lot of reasons. But when we sing, it can really tap into that that emotional piece, because of how melody is perceived in the brain. It all is around, well, in our limbic system, which is our emotional center of the brain. So melody is going to sort of stimulate that part of your brain. So we will have that real emotional connection to the words that we're singing. When we use the same phrase, a predictable phrase, the rhythm, all of that is really soothing for our nervous system. And obviously we're using something really short, whether it's the one word, whether it's just a short phrase or two. And again, when we're repeating that, it is going to really support our nervous system. And you think about when we sing to babies, lullabies, it has that real lullaby effect. So lullabies are really short, they're predictable, they are repetitive. And again, that is because that repetition, that predictability, all cues to our nervous system that it is safe, that we are safe. And when we start to cultivate and actually start to feel more safety within, that is going to support our nervous system as well. So there are a lot of other reasons which I could go into why music and chanting and using mantras like this can be super powerful and soothing for your nervous system. There are just a few different reasons to why. If you're interested in more, do let me know. I can speak a little bit more to that. But they are, there are definitely other things that I've used over my time as well, but they're the pretty big main ones, the key ones that have been really supportive for me on a daily basis, regulating my nervous system, coming back to the present moment, and just feeling more like myself again. And like I said, lots of different ways we can do that. But if I can just say to you, if you are struggling at the moment or needing that extra support or wanting to learn ways to regulate your nervous system, maybe just choose one of those tools, strategies, whatever you want to call it, this week, and give it a go and just notice any sort of change or difference that you feel. So I just wanted to finish with just chatting about resilience, because healing your nervous system is not just about feeling quote unquote calm in the moment, because, we're not going to, let's be honest. It's about building long-term resilience. So when life throws us a curveball, when things go pear-shaped, we're able to handle them and move through those moments with a little bit more grace. And resilience, it's really about how you respond to stress. And it's not about avoiding it altogether and avoiding emotions, because they will show up in some way, shape, or form if we can't be with them and we don't move through them in a healthier way, a way that's going to serve us and serve our children and be supportive. But let's be real, like motherhood, it'll always have its challenges. We can't eradicate that. So when we have the tools to regulate our nervous system, you'll start to develop an inner sense of strength. So that will then help you to bounce back more from stress a little bit more quickly. And you'll feel so much more capable to be able to handle those really challenging days and to find those moments of joy, even when things feel chaotic and even heavy. And the more that you practice these nervous system regulation tools, the more you use them, and not only just use them when you are feeling stressed, but use them all the time in moments where you might not necessarily be feeling particularly stressed, because all of these are going to just help to rewire your nervous system and build more resilience. And it doesn't just benefit you, it will benefit your kids, it will benefit your partner, your entire family. And when we're feeling more centered and grounded, we're better able to be present for our beautiful family and our kids and respond to those challenges with more patience and with more clarity. We're not just going to be feeling like we are running on fumes and just, feeling like we're about to lose our shit all the time. So final thoughts, I just want to leave with you that healing your nervous system and rewiring your nervous system, it's a journey. It's not something that will just happen overnight. It's not a destination, because we're always going to be faced with different stresses as our life goes on, as we navigate and move through the different seasons of motherhood. But it's important that you know that it's not about doing it perfectly every day. It's about finding those little ways that can support yourself, even when things do feel overwhelming. So my suggestion to you is to start small, and whether that's, like I said, just taking a few deep breaths when you feel stressed, or giving yourself permission to rest without feeling guilty, or even if you do feel guilty, doing it anyway, because again, just knowing that you deserve it, even if the guilt comes up. And just remember that prioritizing your own well-being the more you do it, the more fully you're able to show up for your kids and your family and for yourself. because that is equally important, and you deserve that, and you deserve to thrive in motherhood and not just survive it. So thank you so much for joining me today. This topic is a big one, and I know I've just condensed it into quite a short podcast episode, but I hope you found it helpful, and I'd love for you to share it with other mamas and who might, need a bit of extra support. So I'll leave it at that, and I will see you all next week. Take care of yourself. You are doing an amazing job, mama. I hope you know that.